Hello class 10. Today I am going to start with the last chapter for your ICSE 2021, and that's chapter on climate. Okay. Now before I start with this chapter on climate, now let me just tell you the difference between a climate and a weather. Okay. What is a climate and what is a weather? Okay. Now climate is an atmospheric condition that prevails for a very short period of, very long period of time, and weather, it is an atmospheric condition that prevails for a very short period of time. Okay. Now when I talk about atmospheric condition, I'm talking about the temperature, the rainfall, the wind, the precipitation and all that I'm talking about, okay, which prevails for a very short period of time is called a weather, and for a long period of time is called a climate. Okay. Now weather keeps on, since it's for a very short period of time, it changes again and again. Okay, it often changes. In the morning it may be gloomy, okay, then during the daytime it may be sunny, late in the afternoon it may be windy, and at night it might rain. So when that changes, it's called a weather. But to know a climate of a particular place, you have to know, the rainfall, the temperature, the wind, velocity, precipitation, humidity. All this you have to study for the last 20 to 25 years, and then you have to study that, and then you'll come to the conclusion that a climate of a particular place is, whether it's a temperate climate, whether it's a tropical climate, whether it's a continental type of a climate, or an oceanic or moderate type of a climate. Then after studying this, you'll come to know about the climate. So keeping this in mind, the difference between a climate and weather. Now let me start with the climate of India. Now when I talk about the climate of India, India experiences a tropical, okay, tropical monsoon climate. What type of a climate India experiences as a whole? Okay, it's a tropical monsoon climate. Now why tropical monsoon climate is because India lies in the tropical region, and it is the Tropic of Cancer that divides the country, that is 23.5 degree north latitude that divides, which is also known as the Tropic of Cancer, divides the country into two halves, the northern half and the southern half. The southern half is a tropical region, okay, and the northern half is a subtropical or a temperate region. Okay, so since India lying in the tropical region, okay, it experiences a tropical type of a climate. And another important thing is that this word called monsoon, which means mausam, which means season, plays a very, very important role in our country. Okay, now just see. The first one, season, is hot, dry summer. Okay, hot, dry summer starts from March, April, May. Okay. Then you have the second season, which is called the season of the southwest monsoon, which begins in the month of June, July, August, September. Then you have the third season of the retreating southwest monsoon, okay, that begins in the month of October, November. And then you have the last season, that is called the season of the northeast monsoon, okay, and that starts in the month of December, Jan and Feb. Now looking at the season, okay, looking at the season, the first thing that you have to remember is that the word monsoon, I said tropical monsoon climate, I've already told you tropical because India lies in the tropical region, whereas the Tropic of Cancer divides the country into two halves. Monsoon, now if you look at the word monsoon, monsoon word is year, monsoon word is year, and monsoon word is year. That means June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January and February, almost 7 to 8 months in a year. The word monsoon is playing a very, very important role. Okay, so almost 7 to 8 months in a year, some part, not the entire region, but certain part of a country is getting rain. Okay, so this is how monsoon is playing a very, very important role, and that's the reason why it is called a tropical monsoon climate. Okay, the first thing that you have to remember is what type of a climate India experiences? A tropical monsoon climate. Why it's called a tropical monsoon climate? So this is the reason behind. Okay. Now, the next important thing that you have to remember, okay, is the factors that affects the climate of the Indian subcontinent. There are several factors that affects the climate of the Indian subcontinent. Okay, the first important factor that affects it's India's location. Now, India has been located in an area. Okay, same point. India has been located in an area where the Tropic of Cancer, that is 23.5 degree north latitude, divides the country into two halves. Okay, so the northern half is called the subtropical region or the temperate region, and the southern half is called a tropical region. If you look at the northern regions of our country, the northernmost part has been covered with, it's been surrounded by mountain ranges. So this area is very, very mountainous, very, very cold during the winters and cooler during the summers. Then you have the Indo-Gangetic plains, which is very, very hot during the summers and very, very cold during the winters. So you have a continental type or an extreme type of a climate that is being present there. If you look at the southern regions of our country, you have the waters of the Arabian Sea, waters of the Bay of Bengal, and the waters of the Indian Ocean, which is surrounding the southern part of our country, and that's why it's called a peninsula. Okay, and the southern regions of our country, the type of climate it experiences is called a moderate or an equable type of a climate, and the coastal areas experiences a maritime or an oceanic type of a climate because they have been very, very close to the water. Okay, so this is how the location of our country affects the climate of a particular region. Okay, the second important factor is the altitude. Altitude means height. Another very important factor that affects the climate of a particular region is the height of that area. Any place, okay, which is higher, it's cooler. According to the lapse rate, okay, according to the lapse rate, every 166 meters that you go higher, temperature falls down by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, that is the reason behind why an area which is higher in its altitude is much more cooler. So every time 166 meters that you go higher, the temperature falls down by 1 degree Celsius. So this is how altitude plays a very, very important role in affecting the climate of a particular place. Okay, the next one. The next important factor is the presence of the Himalayas. Now, Himalayas are always acting as a perfect climatic divide or a barrier. Okay, Himalayas are always acting as a perfect climatic divide or a perfect climatic barrier, and the reason behind is because the presence of the Himalayas over there is stopping the cold wind. The presence of this Himalayas that is being out here is stopping the cold wind coming from the Siberian or the Arctic region. Okay, if the Himalayas had not been there, then the cold wind from Siberia or the Arctic region would have entered our country and would have made India a very, very cold place to live. But the presence of this Himalayas acting as a barrier, it's blocking the cold wind. So this is how it is affecting the climate. Beside this, you know, when you're talking about southwest monsoon, this originates in the waters of the Indian Ocean. And this wind, which is called the southwest monsoon wind, is responsible for giving rain. Okay, so this wind, which originates from the water bodies, enters India, giving rainfall to the entire country. Okay, heavy showers of rainfall to the entire country. Supposing if the Himalayas over there were not being present, India as a country would have got a less amount of rainfall, and the larger amount of rainfall would have gone to the other parts of Asia. And India would have been a dry place with less amount of rainfall. But the presence of this Himalayas out here is stopping the wind which is carrying moisture to go to other parts of Asia. So whatever amount of moisture that has been picked up by this wind from the waters of the Indian Ocean and waters of the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal is responsible for giving rainfall to India. So this is how the Himalayas plays a very, very important role. First of all, it prevents the cold wind from coming from Siberia and checks the wind which is carrying moisture from the southwest direction, that is from the waters of the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. If the Himalayas had not been there, then India would have been an example of a cold desert. Cold because the cold wind from Siberia, Arctic region would have entered, and desert, why less amount of rainfall would have been given, and the larger amount of rainfall would have gone to other parts of Asia. Okay, then okay, the next one is the presence of the jet streams. Okay, another important is the jet streams. Jet streams outer means the movement of air in the layers of the atmosphere. Okay, and jet streams are the air circulation that is taking place in the layers of the atmosphere, and the importance of the jet stream is that it tells you the arrival and the departure of the monsoons. Okay, so another important factor that affects is the jet stream also. Then you come to the next important factor that again affects the climate of the Indian subcontinent is the distance from the sea. Okay, now when I talk about this distance from the sea, again let me just explain you in the blackboard itself only. Okay. Okay. Any place which is far away from the water. Now you have the waters of the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean here. So any place which is far away from the sea, like for example the northern part of India which is far away. The Indo-Gangetic plains and the Himalayan areas are far away from the waters. Now these areas are very, very hot during summers. Okay, and the reason behind during summer why it is hot is because the vertical rays of the sun overhead the Tropic of Cancer. So because of the vertical rays of the sun, the land is getting heated up. Now if you look at the northern regions of our country, since it is far away from the sea, surrounded by land from all the sides, one land is heated up, the other land is also heated up. The wind is being blowing from one hot land to another hot land, increasing the temperature and making it hotter and hotter. Okay. This is during the summers. It's just the opposite during the winters. During the winters, the northern plains of our country is extremely cold. And the reason behind is because we are not getting, at that time, we are not getting vertical rays of the sun, but we are getting slanting rays of the sun. And when you are getting the slanting rays of the sun, the heat, spreads over larger areas. Vertical means direct. Slanting means spreading over a larger area. So the intensity of the heat is less. Okay, so land is not heated up. Now one land is cold, the other land is also cold. So the temperature is very less. Okay, same way, in the southern regions of our country, summers are hot because of land heating is the same. Summers are hot, but since it is closer to the water, you see the waters of the Arabian, Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean, the wind which is being blowing are much more cooler. So cooler wind enters the land and lowers the temperature on the land. Understood? So that is why summers are not very, very hot in the southern regions of our country. During the winters, the land is cold. Whether it is in the north, whether it is in the south, the land is cold because of the slanting rays of the sun. Because during the winters, the rays of the sun is not vertical overhead the Tropic of Cancer, but it is down below over the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so we are getting slanting rays of the sun, the intensity is not very high, the temperature on the land is less. So the land is much more cooler. Okay, so now since the land is cold, the temperature on the land is less, but water temperature is high during the winters. So when this wind which is being blowing from the water bodies much more warmer enters the land, it slightly increases the temperature and makes it hot. Warmer, not hot but warmer. That is one of the reasons behind why southern part of our country is not very cold also during the winters and not very hot during the summers, because they are being influenced by the wind which is being blowing from the sea, as it is closer to the sea. Whereas the northern regions of our country is extremely far away from the sea. So that's distance from the sea affecting the climate of the Indian subcontinent. And the last one is the western disturbances. Another important factor that affects the climate of the Indian subcontinent is the western disturbances. Now, western disturbances are also called the westerlies. Okay. Now, why it is called the westerlies? Because it blows in the west, from the west. Okay. And this is a wind which is also known as a temperate cyclonic wind. Temperate cyclonic wind, because this is originating in an area where the temperate cyclone is taking place. Okay. So, western disturbance is another important factor that is affecting the climate of the Indian subcontinent, especially in the northwestern regions of our country. Now, remember, okay, this western disturbances is a wind which is originating in the waters of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, this wind which originates in the Mediterranean Sea during the winters, this is affected by a cyclonic wind. And this cyclonic wind is called a temperate cyclonic wind because it lies in the temperate region. Now, when there is a cyclonic wind taking places out here, this wind has been blowing from the water bodies of the Mediterranean Sea, picking up the moisture and then blowing towards the eastern part of India, okay, and then it comes to the northwestern regions, okay, and then responsible for giving rainfall to places like Punjab and Haryana during the winters. These western disturbances are nothing else but it is a temperate cyclonic wind which is carrying moisture, which is also called westerlies, which is carrying moisture from the Mediterranean Sea during the winters, and it's responsible for giving rainfall to the northwestern part of our country, especially states like Punjab and Haryana during the winters, which is called the winter rainfall. And this rainfall that has been received by Punjab and Haryana during the winters helps in the growth of wheat, which is a winter crop. Okay, and higher altitude region of the Himalayas gets precipitation in the form of snow, okay, from the western disturbances. Okay, so these are the important factors that affects the climate of the Indian subcontinent. Again, let me just tell you, the first important factor is the location, India being located in the tropical region. Okay, next important factor is the Himalayas, which is acting as a barrier, climatic divide, stopping the cold wind coming from Siberia and stopping the wind carrying moisture to go to other parts of Asia. The third important factor is the jet streams, distance from the sea, and the temperate cyclonic wind or the western disturbances. So these are the important factors that affects the climate of the Indian subcontinent. Thank you.